Hello and welcome to our first webinar on Microsoft 365 and Copilot. This is really a new thing for me. I've not done anything like this before, so we'll see how we go. Should go quite smoothly. A little bit about me, just for those that don't know me. I own a company, Bluebird Technology Consulting. We're a managed IT provider or managed service provider. We focus on the healthcare sector, doing things like doctors, surgeries, private hospitals, aged care facilities. I've been doing IT for 22 years, and I believe I've been doing it for so long because I have such a to help people. And this today is probably an extension of that, wanting to help people. I see there's a real lot of potential in Microsoft Copilot, and having someone to be able to explain Copilot better than I can is amazing. Aidan is all over this, but Copilot's a big product. There's 117 different versions of Copilot, and we're only going to touch on the Microsoft 365 one today. Once again, I'm really lucky to have Aidan here. He's the Microsoft Business Manager Team Lead at Pax8 and the guru of Copilot. He's going to run everything for us. Thanks, Aidan.
No worries. Thanks, Stuart. I see. Thanks very much, everyone who's taken the time to join. I know everyone's busy as always, especially towards the end of the quarter. But we've got a pretty big topic that we want to start having a conversation about today, being all things Copilot, particularly Copilot for Microsoft 365. As Stuart mentioned, it's a sometimes confusing ecosystem. We've heard about AI, we've heard about generative AI through things like ChatGPT, and now Copilot's on the scene. So what I'm going to do is take some time to just cover off a few slides, just really level set with everyone on the state of the market, the state of the product, and why we should be sort of looking a bit more into this, relating it a bit more into how I've used Copilot myself over about the past year, because I've been lucky enough to have some early access through Pax8, and then go through some practical demos. I'm going to put my HR manager hat on, pretend like I'm working at a company creatively called Aidan's Copilot Company, and I want to create an annual leave policy from scratch. So how can Copilot help me go through the motions of creating those policies, creating presentations, getting feedback from my team, and then working in Excel to analyze that as well. Stuart, I just see as well that we've got the cameras and the mics switched off. I just want to make sure that people can ask questions and just clarify anything that I'm going through at the time. So I can just we can just allow those if that's all right. Otherwise, if you can't come off mute or allow your camera there, just feel free to put it into the chat or the Q&A, and we'll make sure that we get to those questions for you, because we want to make sure we understand that Copilot can be a bit confusing, and it is about those usability, those use cases that really start to make those incremental changes and productivity gains in your day. So please do ask questions along the way if there's anything that I can help with. So I'll just go ahead and share my screen. I'll just be one moment. Let me know if you can start to see that one. Hopefully it's coming through. A little bit more about Pax8 as well. So we work through, thanks very much, everyone. So we work with Stuart as his Microsoft provider. So we've got a direct global relationship with Microsoft, heavily intertwined with the organization globally. And we have sort of stakeholders that we can work through to get sort of early access to products, early training for products as well, and just make sure that we can work with great partners like Stuart and the Bluebird team on helping you guys, especially within SMB. Sometimes Microsoft only speaks to enterprise customers. We want to make sure that everyone's got access to these solutions and the ways that they can impact their days positively. So as far as a quick agenda, as I was saying, I'll cover off a bit about the Copilot for Microsoft 365 opportunity. I'll then start to relate it to my experience with it so far, how I've been able to break down my role, break down some of the pain points I've been working through, and utilizing AI technology to speed up my day, hopefully get some more time back in, and hopefully improve the quality of the work that I'm turning out as well. And then demo time. I think if you've been interested in Copilot so far, you've probably seen some flashy videos, probably seen some flashy slide decks, but it's all about how the technology actually works. So hopefully give you a few insights into the day-to-day of what that starts to look like, and get the ball rolling as far as how you can start prompting, start putting those texts into Copilot to get some results. So really to just kind of set the scene. It wasn't too long ago that generative AI, Copilot, ChatGPT weren't really words that we were using day to day. But about 18 months ago, ChatGPT came onto the scene and just came up with a hiss and a roar, and just got an amazing amount of impact globally. If we compare the uptake of ChatGPT versus other technology focal points in the past 20 years, we can see that the growth rate to get to 100 million users is completely staggering when it's compared with other major technologies that have been launched. Mobile phones took about 16 years. The internet itself, so more hardware solutions, more net new ones, taking 16 or 17 years. Even free solutions in browser experiences like Facebook and social media took 4.5 years to hit 100 million users. But ChatGPT only took 3 months to achieve the same feat, which is pretty incredible. One of the reasons I like to include this as well is because I did do some research to see if anything grew at a faster rate than ChatGPT was able to grow. And the only thing I could come up with that hit 100 million users faster was actually Pokemon Go, which I thought was quite funny. And if we got a business solution that can go toe-to-toe with Pokemon's appeal to kids and some adults, and it's got a business application, then I think it's probably something diving into a little bit more deeply. So the opportunity is growing. It hit that 100 million user mark and it continues to grow. More and more competitors are coming into the space. Copilot for Microsoft was launched. Gemini for Google was launched. Meta's got its own product. There's a big ecosystem of generative AI products out there. So you've got to find out which one's the right one for you. Unsurprising to that, 83% of businesses say that AI is a top priority. So it's right up there with things that they want to investigate and roll out. Probably going toe-to-toe with cybersecurity, which has been the #1 priority for about the past 5 years, and isn't unrelated to this topic as well, which I'll touch upon. One first cab off the rank there is only 23% of businesses say that they have some kind of plan for AI adoption, which can lead to some risks around data governance, how identities are managed internally and accessing different types of data, and then also policies around the usage of AI and the usage of its outputs to your clients, which just do need to be considered and planned for. As I was saying, there's a whole bunch of different solutions on the market in this topic at the moment, but why are we talking about Microsoft 365 Copilot or Microsoft in general? We do have a pretty unique scenario where we've got access to what they call the large language models. So this is the AI machine in the background. This is the applications in the background working, integrating your natural text language through prompts, going through the AI engine, then coming back with a rich response based in natural language again, using whatever grounding you're using, whether it be using the internet for its source of truth or using documents that you're utilizing as its source of truth. The way that the Microsoft option is quite unique is it's utilizing your business data today. So if you're utilizing Microsoft 365, you're utilizing SharePoint or OneDrive, Copilot is able to use those advanced models on top of the data that's sitting within your business currently, which rather than having to learn and adopt a third-party tool, it's actually most likely utilizing the platform that you've already invested in or are planning to migrate to in the future, depending on where your data is stored. On top of this, it utilizes the tech and the model and the data, but also the apps that you've probably in the workforce. So thinking about myself, been using Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Outlook pretty much as long as I've been employed, and even Teams over the past 5 years has been probably my #1 collaboration tool. So making sure that you are able to get the maximum return on your investment in your Microsoft licensing, and then also just making the maximum return on the potential productivity gains for your AI investment as well. But if, like me, you've been in the Microsoft ecosystem for a little while, you probably know that, as Stuart mentioned, they can be quite confusing with their branding sometimes as well. So in addition to getting a couple of Copilots, which are more relevant for us in our SMB scenarios, there's also about, as Stuart said, probably about 100 different Copilots out there, at least 6 or 7 that'll be coming across your desk in the short term as well, outside of the ever-growing ecosystem too. So I just wanted to take a moment just to kind of cut through that noise and talk about a few of the options that you may be looking at from a productivity perspective. For those of you already using ChatGPT, Microsoft has an equivalent product called Copilot with data protection. This is actually free for you to use right now if you've got an M365 license or a Microsoft identity, an Entra ID as well. What this gives you access to is the similar foundational generative AI capabilities. So you've got your large language model, you can prompt into it, you can use the internet as grounding for solutions, and you can basically use it as a fresh version instead of using your search engine in the same way you can use ChatGPT. One of the things that it does do, which ChatGPT, the free version, does not though, is it gives you commercial data protection. The IP or the data or any of the identifiers that you're putting into your prompt aren't then going back in to train the model to improve it from then on. Microsoft takes this information out of your prompt before it goes into the engine and doesn't make that information then public from there. We're seeing this on a day-to-day basis that ChatGPT does create a data risk from that perspective. But probably the most high case one I've seen in the past year was a couple of gentlemen at Samsung who utilized ChatGPT to optimize some of the IP code that they were working on for an upcoming app. ChatGPT did a pretty good job. It came back with an improved code set, but it also put that information into the public sphere. And so their competitors were then able to get access to that as well. So unfortunately, those guys no longer work at Samsung. And there's going to be more and more of these cases of people who don't use data protection for their AI applications. So it's definitely something to consider. And at the very least, I'd recommend using Copilot, the free version, if you are using it in a business sense. On the day that Copilot was launched into SMB as well, it also launched Copilot Pro. So a lot of people got excited because it looked the same. It was a little bit cheaper than the business version, but it's only relevant for a consumer setting. So unless you're using it at home or on a family subscription, it's not going to be relevant for our conversation today. So I just wanted to put a line through that, as sometimes it can create some confusion as to where it fits in the scheme of things. So if you're going to the paid version of Copilot, chances are you're going to end up at Copilot for Microsoft 365, which we can see on the right-hand side there. So in addition to getting the same features as the free version of Copilot, it then brings that experience into the apps that I was mentioning earlier. So your Word, Excel, PowerPoint, etc. So you're able to get those productivity gains directly into the apps that you'd be working on day to day. It uses what's called the Microsoft 365 graph, which is your data and the context for these prompts internally in your business, which really helps when you're dealing with emails, Teams messages, or even identities and calendars within your business as well. And been working with Stuart and the team on your security posture through your Microsoft licensing. Your Copilot instance is also going to inherit all of those security, compliance, and privacy measures. So thinking about if you only want certain employees to have access to certain documents, it's going to inherit that tagging automatically to make sure you don't have instances where there might be data leaking or people accessing documents that may be sensitive and they shouldn't be getting access to. Thinking payroll, thinking HR documentation and stuff like that, which I'll cover off in a little bit. I might just stop there for a moment. Just feel free to raise your hand or put anything in the chat if you do have a question. Or Stuart, if there was anything you wanted to sort of add at this point, then before I jump into the role functions.
No worries. I've certainly got nothing to add yet, but
cool.
Can someone just send a chat just to make sure it is working though, please?
No worries. I can see Jackie's putting something in there. Thanks very much, Jackie and Vanessa. I appreciate that.
Everyone, love it. Thank you.
Awesome. No, thanks very much for that. We'll make sure that we keep monitoring that one to help you out there. But I'll keep plowing on if there aren't any questions at this stage. So if we start to think about the context of how we're talking about Copilot, we start to think about how does it actually drive impact into different roles within the most organizations. As I mentioned later, I'll be putting my HR manager hat on, so I'll be looking at how we can improve some of the processes there. But historically, I've sat more within the sales and marketing functions since I've been in the workforce. So I've started to apply a lot of that to my day-to-day, which I'll cover off. But thinking about ways to draft your first version of a campaign, drafting first fresh emails to about an 80% or a first draft version within a couple of moments versus within a couple of minutes or a couple of hours, depending on how advanced the text is, are a lot of the functions that you can use there. Also consolidating large amounts of fractured data, so emails, messages, and documents into a single document so you can help brief in members of your team faster is advantages that you can use for sales if you're going out to see clients. But if you saw some of the announcements this week, outside of that really rich text experience, there is now advanced analytics and financial and statistical features coming into Copilot, particularly for Excel as well. So if you're working within finance and you haven't been able to find that value in Copilot that you were trying to find earlier, now you've got advanced Python scripting that's built into the prompting engine, so you can start to build more advanced analytics and forecasting out of financial documents, which are some of the demos that we'll be looking to provide in coming months. For today's session, though, I will be hopefully showing some good tips and tricks on how you can standardize your documentation and create some visualizations from some Excel spreadsheets as well. So hopefully you're able to see the value in the Excel experience too. As I said, Copilot's been on the market for about 9 months within SMB. It's been in the enterprise space for about a year. So Microsoft's been working really hard in the background to try and gather some data on how its users have been going and try and give some valuable feedback on where the biggest gains have been made. From a qualitative perspective, around 70% of Copilot users have said that they are feeling more productive when they're utilizing the tool and they don't want to give it up. So that's a great start. It's nice to know that people are feeling more productive, but we do want to see some hard numbers behind it as well as to what those gains can start to look like. A great example is through the Teams experience, which we'll hopefully show at the end as well, is that Copilot users are able to summarize meetings 4 times faster than those not using Copilot. And what they found in their data as well is they're able to summarize those meetings to a higher standard as well. So not only getting that time back in your day, but actually improving the work that you're doing in that shorter amount of time. The way that I like to think about this as well is we've got Copilot working in the background at the moment, but I'm able to fully immerse myself in the presentation that I'm doing and also looking at the questions that are being asked at the same time without having to take notes. We all know what it's like multitasking. Sometimes it feels like you're getting a lot done, but if you then reflect back on that time you've been multitasking, it may not have been as productive or as effective if you're just focusing on those individual roles one at a time. So utilizing Copilot to play that part for you can definitely help augment those efforts for you. If we then start to look outside of that team's experience and start to look at a variety of different tasks, Microsoft pitted two groups against each other, looking at searching, writing, and summarizing a range of different tasks as well. And they found that the Copilot user group was able to work faster and more effectively, 30% faster or 30% more than the users not using Copilot. So you can start to figure out what the ROI of your Copilot instance might look like. If you start thinking about, okay, my workers are 30% more effective than they were previously, they can reinvest that time back into their day, or we might be able to get more done with a smaller team, or even more done with an even larger team. So just thinking about how that investment can work out for you. Another way that I like to look in this lens is through how much time it was able to save for the sales team. The average sales user was able to save 90 minutes back in their working week, which if we think about, sales resources can sometimes be quite expensive. So that 90 minutes saved is a good payoff within itself. But if you think also of the way that the sales roles or business development roles function, that's 90 minutes that they can be closing more deals or going through more revenue generating activities. So the actual ROI on that savings for the sales team is going to pay off in multiples versus just salary time saved or resources saved. So there is a great opportunity in front of us. The vast majority of SMBs and mid-market firms are looking to roll out generative AI in one way or another in the next 6 months. But there are some considerations. Only a small amount of organisations have any AI management policies in place currently, and a small amount as well are working to mitigate the risks, such as inaccurate information. Another high-level case that I came across when I was researching this is there were some lawyers over in the States who created some legal advice using ChatGPT at the time as well. One of the problems was there wasn't anything wrong with the advice itself. It all read very well, was formatted very well, came across very professionally based on some of the documents they were using. But what ChatGPT did is it went outside the boundaries and it started to create precedent law cases that didn't actually exist. It created those precedents from scratch, inserted those into those legal advices, and that was passed on to the client. Those lawyers now have a couple of years to think about what they've done and what they want to do because they've been struck off for a little while. But it just goes to show some of the risks of if you're using it as autopilot, so you're not doing any sense checks or balances, and you're not using it as a co-pilot, you're thinking about how it's a tool that I need to then work on or reflect upon the content that's being created to make sure that it's up to scratch with whatever my compliance, my government bodies require me to do, or even just the quality of work to make sure that you're able to live up to the standards that your clients are expecting. So I've sort of level set there on what the market is so far, what the opportunity looks like. So let's have a look at what my experience has been with Copilot so far. If I think about my role, so I'm the Microsoft Business Manager here at Pax8. I get to collaborate. It's a great opportunity. I get to collaborate with resources all over APAC, collaborate with team in Europe, collaborate with the team in the States as well. So whilst it's great fun getting to work with all of these people, it means that the role can be live 24/7. Once I turn on my laptop in the morning, chances are there's meetings that I've missed overnight, there's emails that have been coming through. So I start my day with a digital deficit that I need to tackle before I ever get into my day-to-day work. So once I've sort of resolved that, I've started to move on to say I need to create a new marketing campaign. If I don't have a pre-existing template, I need to start that from scratch. So it can be quite a long process to get that on the ball while still tackling probably half of those emails that are clogging up my inbox. I'm working with Stuart and the team next week to do a presentation. So I need to create a presentation about Copilot from scratch. Maybe that's something that I don't have a template for either, or I don't have an existing draft. So I need to start that one from scratch too. Probably haven't finished off my emails, probably haven't finished off my campaign stuff, starting to crack into my presentation, and I still need to do some financial forecasting in the afternoon, which I need to do from scratch as well. So my day's starting to get stacked up. There's a lot of pressure being built upon what I need to do. So I'm starting to work weekends, starting to work evenings, and generally not managing my time particularly well. So this is some of the pain points that I would hopefully like to insert Copilot to help me out with. So if I think about the pain points, think about the applications of Copilot, that's when we start to enter the world of prompting. So prompting just means literally just the text that you're going to put into the AI engine in order to get a response back from the technology itself. It can be quite simple, but it also it can be a bit more of an art than a science sometimes as to the details you want to put into those prompts to get a really effective response back from Copilot. So this is where some of that muscle building that users need to have. Some people have faster success than others, and that's where that knowledge sharing across teams can really start to pay off as far as who's having a great Copilot experience, who might not have a great one straight out of the box, but how do you persevere to make sure you do get those productivity benefits? As I was mentioning before, I've got a pretty text-based role, sort of sales, marketing, that sort of stuff. So Word and Teams is going to pop up on my list of preferred apps pretty quickly. But the last app that I've got there listed down there is the icon for the M365 chat or Copilot function. And that's where it's a really unique opportunity of bringing a lot of different data together. So thinking Teams messages, thinking emails, thinking documents, thinking calendars, I can bring a lot of these together, even transcripts of meetings, to make sure that I can consolidate data across a wide landscape in order to bring and synthesize that for me. Some of the prompts that stand out is like creating a one-page brief for a sales team based on a pre-existing long document. I can tag that document, build on top of that, and make sure I can get a succinct summary within a couple of moments. I can then also ask Copilot, use this one-page summary to create a table of pros and cons within there. Use it to use its own imagination or its own insights based on the models that it knows from the internet to build out a pros and cons, which I can then review. And it only takes me a couple of moments to get there. If we're thinking about the meeting today, if we're at the end, we want to summarize the meeting and list any action items, Copilot can do that quick as a flash. However, if we're live during the meeting, we can also say, if you have to step out for a call or you may have missed something, please recap the last 10 minutes of this meeting so I can then catch up, make sure I'm fully immersed in it, make sure I'm fully getting the information that I need, and Copilot can do that whilst referring back to the transcript, the reference that it got it from. Last scenario before I move on here is one that I've really enjoyed. If I've got a customer meeting or I'm going into bringing another stakeholder to a meeting where they're not familiar with the context, I can put a prompt into Copilot itself and say, please create a one-page summary across all the chats, emails, and documents about a certain customer or a certain topic. And then Copilot will go across my entire M365 environment, scour information that's to do with that topic or that customer, bring it together, and then I can give a really succinct view within a couple of moments about that customer. If you think about how long it would take to do that process manually, you could be there for hours or even days in order to provide an effective view, and chances are you'd probably still miss something. So getting the technology to work for you can be really effective. So if we think about my pain points, we think about the prompts that I've been using, how did Copilot start to help me? Well, I've just captured that example there, recap all of last week's meetings, emails, and messages from a certain person. Probably got to start on Monday morning. I might start with my senior leaders or my manager to make sure I respond to them first. That doesn't slip through the cracks, but you can also prioritize that depending on what you need to go back to first. Another feature, you can also ask which emails have I not responded to yet. Sometimes I don't manage my inbox most effectively, so I'll read things, forget to tag it as unread, not put my flags on it or however else I'm managing it, and then 2 weeks later I didn't respond back to an email I needed to. If I can put that into Copilot, it can then create a table for me of emails I haven't responded to and prioritize that based on users, which is really handy. I can then go into Word, drafting up a campaign update. I'll show us how to do that in the demos in a few moments, how we can draft up initial documents using Word. I can show us how to use a PowerPoint to create a company branded presentation from scratch as well. So not just a blank presentation, white background with black text. How can I get it to use a company template or a pre-existing M365 template just to make sure it looks pretty effective and pretty appealing from the get-go. I can then finally just make sure I'm saving time on formatting my data in a spreadsheet, creating graphs within that spreadsheet, and then drafting it into a forecasting document. So I can actually go through a series of steps, getting all the way to a way that I can present it back to the senior leadership team without having to do all that manually. So some really good opportunities in here. You can see the way that I've visually broken it down. I now have some gaps in my day. I'm no longer stacking these jobs on top of each other. So I can probably do more work and I can do it more effectively without multitasking and falling behind and creating that pressure on myself, which has been a great outcome the past year or so I've been able to use Copilot. But that's the end of the slides there. So what I can do now is I'll stop sharing my screen for one moment. I'll go across and then bring up my M365 environment so we can start doing some demos and showing you how it works. As I was mentioning earlier, I'll be putting my hat on, pretending I'm Aidan from Aidan's Copilot company, being the HR manager. The scenario that I want to work through today is creating an annual leave policy from scratch. So since this is a new company, which I invented about 5 minutes ago, I don't have any pre-existing templates or pre-existing policies that I can leverage to then update. I really need to get one from scratch. So I'll just be 1 second, I'll share my screen and show you how I'd get started with that. Just while I'm doing that there, yeah, Stuart, sorry, it just came off mute. Do you have anything you'd like to add or any questions?
We've just had a few questions come in. I've responded to them as much as I can, but if there's any extra you can shed on. Jackie's asked, is there an app like ChatGPT? And there is a Copilot app for Android and iPhone. Both are there, and they work really well. I've tested it on my iPhone. I haven't tested it on Android, but on iPhone it worked really well for me. Yep. One from Vanessa would like, she's interested to know how you access Copilot with data protection, the free version of it.
Yep.
So I can reach out to Vanessa after this and we can go through that. That shouldn't be a problem at all.
Yeah, no worries.
And then we've got Dr. Archer's asked a really good question, which I think a lot of doctors will be wanting to know. Copilot functionality with recording medical record notes during a patient consult. So effectively, what we're asking, or what Dr. Archer is asking here is, he'd like to record the consult in, say, Word, and then have Copilot keep the notes for the whole lot and summarise it for him.
Okay, so kind of breaking those down. So yep, 100% Copilot's got the ChatGPT-like app, which is the version with data protection that we were mentioning earlier. I'll show you in a moment how we can access that because that's part of the demo there. As far as recording meetings, minutes as part of those doctor consults, definitely a feature that you can utilize, but I'd probably recommend working with Stuart to make sure the data sensitivity labeling is highly confidential for those ones, as that's a sensitive audience and a sensitive data set. You can limit that down as much as you want if you've got the right licensing. So thinking business premium or above, as far as licensing with Microsoft security intertwined into it. But for each document that you can create a policy to make sure this is confidential to me. It's not able to be accessed by my co-workers, or you can create it as part of a department. It's only available to the GPs that work here. Or if you're doing it for more of a general meeting for, say, like the admin stuff as well, but you want to use the same functionality, make sure that there's a data tag available to make this more generally available, but still confidential to users within this tenancy, which will be pretty much automatic anyway. So quite a few ways to break that down, but probably something I'd work with Stuart on, and the Pax8 team is here to support Bluebird as well to make sure you've got all the tools to get those policies in place. Okay, so getting started to kind of answer Jackie's question as well. How I'm going to get started with this HR scenario is I want to basically use Copilot, similar to a search engine. I want to get started with finding a government template to help me work out with a employee leave policy. So I want to go up to the top right-hand corner of my browser and utilize Copilot from here. Once that loads through, so it'll just refresh, you can see that since I have a paid version of Copilot, I've got this toggle bar up the top where I can toggle between web and work. If you don't have this toggle bar, it means that you've got the free version of Copilot activated already, because what you're utilizing is commercial data protection is consistent across the board with all Microsoft Copilot products. But through the web experience, that's where it's a ChatGPT-like experience. It's the free version of this, and it's utilizing the internet for the data that it's going to be reacting to, that it's going to be building upon. So that's how you access that. I like to do it through the Edge browser myself. You can also access it a few different ways. Say in the M365 browser version, there's Copilot over here, which will get you the same experience, or even right down the bottom, I've got the Windows version activated as well. So some people might have slightly different sort of rollouts of Copilot in there. I like to use the browser experience because it is the most consistent. Another reason why I like to do it in the browser experience as well is you get to see all of the M365 apps you've got access to. So you may have access to more things than you realize, but also the development cycle at Microsoft. It's working so quickly on this AI stuff that they're actually putting the newest version of Copilot is always within the web version. And it takes a little bit longer to get to the desktop apps because it requires another step of development to adjust the models for there. So if your experience doesn't match up to what you want it to be, chances are it's going to be available in the web experience as it'll be the latest version. So just to bear in mind. Without further ado, we want to get our prompting started so we can get this demo underway. So we're sitting within the web version. As I said before, I'm going to kind of use it as a search engine. I'm going to put through my prompt to try and find the annual leave policy template that I want to work from. So since I don't have anything pre-existing here, I want to put through a prompt saying, I'm an HR manager based in Victoria, Australia, where I'm based. Please find a government document template for me to help build an employee leave policy. Just quickly breaking down this prompt to just show, hopefully it's going to be a very effective prompt to work with Copilot. I'm identifying myself as an individual, which is important in this case. It isn't always relevant, but it is here as I want it to speak to me as an HR manager. Geographical importance is here as well, because sometimes the employment law can change from state to state, or the regulations can. So we want to make sure that that's called out. Don't want to make something on WA law if it's slightly different in Victoria, and that's where my employees are based. I want it to be a government document template, just from it being a leave policy. Probably that's the level of jurisdiction, or the level of authority that I want to utilize for this. And then most specifically, I want it to be an employee leave policy. So that's the main subject here, and all of the others are qualifiers to hopefully limit down the scope effectively to get the right response straight away. Also, just in a couple of moments, Copilot's reading through this. It's scouring the internet. It's coming back with a response. So Awesome. It's utilised the Business Victoria website to come back with an HR policies and procedures manual. I can download it from this URL here, but it gives us a bit more context as to what it's come up with. So it's designed to help policies and procedures of various leave, ensuring consistency. Sounds like it's good to me. In the interest of time, we'll move along, but also just a good sense check. We can see it's got a business.vic.gov.au URL that it's sourcing it from. So we can pretty much trust that, that URL. What I can do is I can click on this link, open up that page, and then lo and behold, we've got our policy that we can download here. Let's download that, just have a quick look. It'll open up our Word file. And then we can see from here, we've got our HR policy manual template. As it's kind of like it's meant to be a manual template that the government's providing here, you can see there's an awful lot of instructions. There's a lot of header stuff. It's about 14,000 words long, but then there are some subheadings that we do want to refer to. So company history, clients, employment, dress codes, probation, inductment, all of the information that we need, all within a casual 80-page document. So something that's going to take a long time to read. Let's go back in the background. We'll save this and let's think about how Copilot can help us build on top of this one. So I've already saved this one in the background. What I want to do is probably open up Word, as it's a Word file that we want to create. I'll open up a blank document here in the web experience. And I'll show you, since I do have a paid M365 Copilot license, I can see that I do have the Copilot logos internally within the app that I can get started with. So where this differs is I can see that there's logos here. Once I hover over it, it starts to color in. Click that, and then it gives me my text box to start drafting with Copilot. I'll just be one moment. I'll just get my prompt that I want to pop in here, and then I'll just walk through that similar to last time. So my prompt here is, I'm an experienced HR manager, so I want the seniority of my role to be displayed in the text that's presented at Aidan's Copilot company. So I want that to be identified within the output too. Using this file as a reference, please write an employee leave policy. So pretty simple stuff after that, but hopefully meaningful enough to get a response that's on the money. But what I need to do, different to the last time, is I need to tag that document that I saved. I want to ground the template that I saved to my OneDrive previously. So if I put a / and I start to type in the name of the document that I saved earlier, I can see I've got my demo HR policies template that I downloaded. Awesome, that's now embedded within my prompt. So Copilot will be scouring that Word document to then create the output here. I could also click on this paperclip if I couldn't find it from that preloading text, if it is somewhere else in my OneDrive and I can't track it down. But while I've got everything else here, I'm going to start generating this. This should just take about sort of 60 seconds, maybe a little bit less, because Copilot had a big upgrade last week, and start to break down the output here, which, looking at the subheadings pretty quickly, looks like it's going to be on the money for something that I want to create. But do some other quick reviews just while that's loading. I can see it's referring to Aidan's Copilot company versus saying, please insert name here or insert business name, which was on the previous document. So saving a lot of time there. And we can start to see it's auto-populating with a few of the sort of predictable or usual suspects you'd think from an employee leave policy. I think it should have 4 weeks paid leave in here, 10 days paid leave, carers or sick leave or carers leave, and a few other subheadings around parental leave, long service leave, etc. So if I was going to just sort of scale this, think about I'm wanting to get to an 80% first draft quick as a flash. I think Copilot's lived up to my expectation here, and then I can start customizing it based on what benefits Aidan's Copilot company wants to provide. If I did want to regenerate it, I wasn't too happy with the first version, I can click on this little roundy symbol, and that's going to regenerate it for us. Or I can put some more prompts in here to refine what that output starts to look like. Say, make it longer, make it shorter. Please make the language more casual, make the language more professional. That's where you get a chance to start fine tuning from there. In the interest of time, I'm just going to keep that one, do a final look over. I think that's pretty much ready to go. I can get approval from my manager. And in this instance, we're ready to go and start presenting that back to the employees at Aidan's Copilot company. What we do need in this instance, though, is we will need a PowerPoint. So what I might do is I'll go back to the desktop experience here. These are the slides that I was working on earlier. I'll just open up a blank presentation. I'll just be one moment and bring that into view. So I've got my blank presentation here in PowerPoint. What I will want to do and show you is, I'm not too sure if everyone's been using templates within PowerPoint before. It's a really good way to start saving time. If you don't have a pre-existing template that you're working off, you can use a company branded one if you have one, or you can utilize an M365 or a Microsoft preloaded template that's ready to go. So I click on New here. You can see there's 2 subheadings. There's Office and there's Pax8. These Office tab is templates that are ready to go that you can use Copilot to build your document on top of and build a preloaded presentation. But since I'm presenting internally at Pax8, I'm going to open up the template that we created here a couple of years ago to make sure that I'm using company branded colors, company fonts, and logos where appropriate. As you can see here, it's got all the tables of contents. It's got the branding guidelines if I was going to do this manually, similar to that Word document we had earlier. But this is awfully long. It's awfully convoluted. I hope Copilot can help me cut through some of the noise here and make it a shorter process. So what I'm going to do, click up in the top right-hand corner, open up my Copilot text box and say, I'll just get my prompt. I'll just put on a moment. So this is where we start to get a little bit easier. We're starting to build for more advanced documents. We don't have to be as specific as to who we are, what we want, or any locations. We can just say, please create a PowerPoint or a presentation using this file as a reference. Please also use images where appropriate. So I just need to tag in that, put that / and tag in this Word document I saved earlier before. I saved it as demo1 HR output. So this was just what Copilot built on top of that government template. And then we can click go. If this all works as expected, I should hopefully get a response back from Copilot saying, do you want to write over these slides? Awesome, because we want to make sure that we're not writing over slides or letting Copilot do it itself. You want to have those sense checks in there so you don't lose any work. In this case, I'll say yes, please, as I'm pretty happy for it to build on top of this template for me. It's finding my file, it's starting to scour through, and I'll start building out those slides. Stuart, I'm not sure if have there been any questions or anything the past few moments. Just want to make sure while this is building out, take a chance to clarify those.
Yeah, certainly. No, not yet. It's I think we're on top of it all so far.
Awesome. No worries. So what we can start to see Copilot doing, it's building these subheadings, quite a few subheadings if I'm doing this. So possibly next time I could slim down the output within Word and make sure that it's more of a succinct presentation, but we'll see what the output looks like. And yeah, beauty. We can start to see we've got our hero slide here. We've got our agenda. We've got some slides here, maybe a bit of a misuse of the logo that we'd revisit on a second draft. But a lot of these slides here, they're really starting to break down what we're expecting to see. Subheadings around entitlements, subheadings around business close down periods, cashing out if we've got stocks, if that's relevant, leave in advance. And you can start to see we're using company branded slides, colors and fonts, which is great. Copilot's even going through and designing some slides using images, using stock images that we can utilize. And even on the hero slide, it's left spaces for us to start including stock images that we want to choose. I'll just show you how to do that if you haven't done that yourself before. So if you click on this landscape image with a magnifying glass, we can start to utilize stock images from the Pax8 branded library, which I've got access to, or to just Microsoft's branded library. If we think about what we're doing today, it's an employee leave policy. So let's have a look under employees in here. We probably want some happy employees to go on this slide to set the right tone for us. Once we insert that, that slide looks like it's ready to go and set the scene once the meeting starts. Once you have those components in there, you also have access to Designer, which is an AI-driven feature within PowerPoint that's been around for a while. And you can start to reshape what these slides look like if you don't really like the format of them or you want to tweak it from there as well. So you can really start to get some more advanced, more corporate-looking slides from just a couple of clicks of a button if you think about where we've come from. So we found our template, we've created a draft leave policy, and then we've created a company-branded presentation, pretty much ready to go, just in a couple of minutes there as well. So if I just take a moment, think about next steps. We've got this presentation that we want to present back to our employees to see how our employee leave policy is going to land. So what we probably need then is a form submission, a feedback form that we want to insert either into our presentation or send out via email afterwards. If I go back to my Microsoft 365 experience, I can have a look in the apps that I've got available, and we've actually got Microsoft Forms here, which I'm pretty sure is available to anyone with an M365 license. If you haven't used it before, it's a pretty powerful tool, pretty simple tool, but a pretty good way to do form fills, do feedback forms, or even do like surveys and submissions to internal and external users. So do keep that in mind if you do have a paid solution that you're paying for right now. Could save you some money and maybe make the process a bit simpler too. What I want to do is create a pretty simple employee satisfaction form. So I'll just put in this prompt of, can you please create a feedback survey for the HR department to assess employees' job satisfaction and find areas of improvement? So Copilot automatically pops up in here. You can create your forms from scratch if you want to. I want to make sure I'm saving as much time as possible. So I'll put in this simple prompt and click generate. As you can start to build this out, one of the reasons why I like to do this in the apps as well is there's been some research from Microsoft to say that most users only access about 5 to 15% of features within those apps. If we think about what Excel can do and what we use it for, there's a whole bunch of different things that we don't have access to, and that's pretty similar across most apps. In the same way, I don't really write survey forms very often, so chances are it's going to be quite boring, quite dull with a similar format. People aren't going to be that interested to fill it out. But if we have a look at the output that Copilot came back with, it's asked questions in a few different ways to kind of make that form more interesting. Got a little star scale for how satisfied are you with your current role, a couple of text boxes, but then we've got like an NPS score in there as well, which I probably wouldn't have utilized. And it gives a little ranking solution for different aspects of your job importance or job features that you enjoy or don't enjoy. And then you can start to upload documents that are relevant to your feedback as well. So quite a few different angles to hopefully get that feedback coming through. I'm pretty happy with that. Let's go ahead and keep that one. Within forms, you can also change the style if you want to change it to company branding, or if you just want to make it look more appealing. Perhaps it's Christmas time, you want to have some snowflakes at the top. There's a couple of ways that you can just make that form more appealing. And then if we're ready to go, we can go click get responses. Generally, you can put anyone can respond or just people within your company. Insert a link or insert a QR code into that presentation, and all of a sudden you've closed that loop on that presentation being from a one-way conversation to a two-way conversation, and now you've got some feedback to see how well it landed and report that back to the team. For the kind of the final step to really close the loop on that one, we're going to want to get that output from that survey. So we're going to get an Excel sheet that we can export from forms, but we want to have a look at what the results are and sort of analyze that to make sure that we can utilize that and then close the loop on this with our team, get the best results and make any improvements to our department to increase our job satisfaction or our employee satisfaction. I didn't match up the table perfectly to what my output was, but I do have a pretty simple but pretty decent sized data set showing employee full name, employee IDs, satisfaction levels, and departments and sales salary. So pretty, so kind of like the data set that you'd expect to see from an HR survey form fill. One of the tasks that I've come across quite a lot in Excel is just how sometimes it can be a bit tedious changing the format of text boxes in order to make sure they're appropriate to upload into certain CRM tools. If I think about a scenario like changing this full name column into a first name and last name, for example, I can never remember how to do those formulas. I don't do it very often. So at best, I'd need to research how to do that, try and get it to work. Probably won't work. I'll ask someone in finance if they know, they might not know. And then chances are I'm just going to come in here, copy and paste it into a new column and waste a whole bunch of time and pretend I didn't do it that way. One of the things that you can do in Copilot is try and get the technology to work for you. So let's try out a prompt that can then change that full name column into first name and last name. So I'll just be 1 moment. We'll give that a crack. Might need to just refresh my screen as I think this tab's been open a little while. Let's reopen Copilot and see if that's ready to go. Awesome. So we can see it was loading up before. We can see that these boxes are now filled up, so Copilot's ready to work for us. If I put in, please split first name, so just the name of the column, but it's meaningful as to it'll figure out what information I'm talking to. So please split first name into full name, sorry. Made a bit of a typo, I was getting ahead of myself. Please split full name into first name and last name. Let's enter that pretty simple prompt and see if Copilot's able to figure out what we want it to do. Cool, so it's just having a little bit of a think, and awesome. Just a couple of moments and we can see that Copilot started to have a think about the request that we've got. But then it's starting to provide a insight into the workings that it utilized to try and create the output that we wanted. It's created a new column in row G and H called first name and last name. It's using this indexed text split formula in order to create those. So you can go through the working, see how that works if you want to, so you can manually do it next time, or you can utilize the output here. So it's giving a bit of a preview into what it's going to display from those outputs. If we look at column A, we can see Rayner Park. If we look at these columns that it's created, Rayner Park, Dax and Mays, it all starts to match up with the output that we'd be wanting to utilize to split those columns effectively. We just go ahead and insert those. Copilot will automatically put that into our spreadsheet, so we can now copy and paste or cut these into the column that we want to. And then we've got our data set ready to go as far as the format that we need. So I don't really need that for today, so I will just delete these columns for us. But what I want to showcase a little bit as well is you can give Copilot room to move, give it an opportunity to have a look at your data sets and hopefully create some visualizations that can get you some insights into the data that you may not be able to get otherwise if you're not an advanced Excel user. You do get across most of the Copilot experiences some recommended prompts down the bottom here, so do suggest using those if you don't have a place to start or you don't know how to get started. And I'm simply just going to click on Data Insights and see what Copilot can do here. Just while it's doing that, you will be having those preloaded prompts that you can utilize, or there's a little textbook down in the bottom of most of the Copilot experiences to view prompts that Microsoft would recommend or the most used prompts as well. So definitely utilize those if you're looking for a place to get started. In the meantime, Copilot came back with a table that it's created for us, so a nice visualization of job satisfaction by department. If I have a look at the data set that we've got here, it's probably the insight that I want to find out the most is which department that I've got, depending on which salary as well, is the most satisfied at Aidan's Copilot company. It's a little bit small, so we might ask it to add it to a new sheet. We can zoom in and then we can have a look to see if there's any trends that we want to report back on. So we've got the workings as far as the average satisfaction level in a data table, but then we also have this graph that's probably more relevant to paste into a presentation if I'm bringing that back to my manager to see how our annual leave policy has landed. And I think there's a bit of work to do over at Aidan's Copilot company. The managers are pretty happy. We're pretty happy in the HR team. But if we think about accounting, support, and product management, they're not very happy by quite a margin. So there's probably some things that I need to correct here, probably some bit more research I need to do. But thanks to Copilot doing the work for me, I'm able to get these insights. So hopefully any of these shortcomings are able to be addressed in the short term. So if you think about what we've been able to do in just in about sort of 25 minutes, half an hour, is we've gone from having nothing, we've had a clean slate. We've gone through, we found a government template about an annual leave policy. We've gone through and created a first draft over that annual leave policy specific to this company. We then created on-company branding, a presentation to present that back to all of the employees, a feedback form to pop into that presentation as well. And then we've analysed the data that we've created off the back of those form fills, formatting, and then also creating some bar charts and some visualizations there too. It's just the beginning of where you can get started with Copilot, but hopefully showed some pretty meaningful examples. But the story doesn't end there as well. So Stuart, that's the end of my sort of demos that I had here in that presentation, but I know there was a couple that you wanted to walk through as well.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you very much, Aidan. Jackie's asked one question here that I think is really good question about PowerPoint in particular. Is there a way of Copilot doing a better job of building the slides with respect to the font size, number of words, dot points, etc.? So it's not so text heavy, and yeah, it's just a clearer presentation.
Yeah, so one of the victims, like the template that I was working off, hasn't been designed to then have Copilot built on top of it. It's really designed to make consistency across the whole Pax8 organization. What I would probably do is, as we do, pretty much everyone at Pax8 has a Copilot license now, would be to create a version of that template that is more simplified to what we wanted to do. So it has sort of larger fonts as standard. It doesn't have so many smaller dot point ones, because really it is only interpreting the information that I give it and then building on top of that. What we could do is then, if you don't have a company template, the Microsoft 365 ones that I was showing earlier should be optimized for that experience. But I'd say less is more if you want to have a more clear output. So if you're doing that, rather than I think I had about 10 different slides, which went through a whole bunch of different template scenarios for PowerPoint. If you just had 3 or 4 slides with some really clear usage of images, really clear uses of font sizes, chances are it's going to be a lot closer to what you want of that first version.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
No worries.
All right. So the one I wanted to touch on was Outlook, because I've been using Copilot with this fairly heavily. So I'm going to share my Outlook, which is going to be a risk in itself. Okay. So with this one in particular, what I have found really good is when we go to Copilot, and I say I'm looking for someone's email or someone that sent a heap of emails. And I know recently Tiffany sent me a whole heap of emails, really good emails about security stuff. So I want to find out about what she sent and just get a summary of it. So I'm going to say in Copilot, once again going up to Copilot, and I'm going to ask nicely, so please provide a recap of Tiffany Franklin's emails about security. So it's going to go through my emails and have a look on this. So it's found some. And here's a recap of what it's found. All right, so we found 2 on the 22nd and 26th. Now what I want to do is say I had a heap more. So let's please please provide a 2-paragraph summary. Okay, well that didn't work. It's probably because I've got too little things there, but we'll move on to the next step. So if I had a summary, I could just read over what was sent and I could go, oh yeah, that's perfect. But now I want to say something nice, like Tiffany's done a great job. I want to appreciate that. So once again, please, always please, so we don't get overtaken, please send a professional email to Tiffany saying that she's done a great job researching security issues recently so that we can. Yeah. Okay, so just going to ask Copilot to create this chat or email for me.
And just while that's loading up as well, Stuart, one of the really handy things about that first prompt you put in, and if you do tag specific people, it's going to give you footnotes, or it's going to give you references as to where it gets that information from. So if you do want to find out the full context of where it got that, it'll give you a link to then open up that email to go there as well.
Yeah, so that's an example of that one there, or that one there that Tiffany sent through. So I think I've just broken that one. Hang on.
Oh, sorry, Stuart. I've ruined your draft.
Yeah, that's right. I'll copy and paste that again, run it again. This is good because I didn't want it to run perfectly. I wanted it to have an issue because nothing's ever smooth. So it's good. All right, so great job. So it's created this already, and I can go now. Let's regenerate that. I didn't like how that one looked. And I go, oh, no, actually I did. So I can go back to the other one that I had there as well. And I can change it, make it more friendly. So, and then we can do that. And if I go, yep, that's exactly what I want to say, keep it and send. And it's already found out it's going to go to Tiffany, and it makes sure, check what you've sent. Just because it's generated by AI, you just want to check it. So, and off it goes. So that's that done there. That's probably the biggest benefit I've found out of Copilot for myself with emails, just being able to summarize a whole heap of emails that I've had going back and forwards because it's just too complicated for me to keep up with what's happening.
Yeah, I think I think from my perspective as well, it's if you've got a really long thread of emails, if you've been on holidays or if you've got multiple stakeholders in a single thread, you know that the actual context of what that conversation is maybe 15 emails down, but you're reacting to the most recent one. And if you don't have it stored by conversations, it'd be very challenging. So having that summarization feature can really help you get to the crux of what the matter is versus the half an hour of sifting through, like, where's that email? This has been going on for a while.
Absolutely, and I've spent many hours looking through emails over my time going, which one was that, and trying to find it. So it helps a lot in a real world examples of it. Okay, I don't think, if there's any other questions, definitely ask them now. Otherwise, I think we're done for all the...
Yeah, well, the only last one I'd think of, Stuart, I'm not too sure if you're able to access it now, but if you can access just like the recap in Teams, that's usually a pretty solid one that most people are able to try it straight away, and definitely one that I get a lot of value on. I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but since I was sort of presenting most of the time, I wasn't able to take many notes. If I was trying to take notes, I'd probably lose track of what I was presenting, but I just wanted to give a bit of an insight into what the Teams recap can look like. So you've got all of the actions and the topics that were covered during the meeting. Not too sure if you're able to provide that one now. Otherwise, I can definitely get you some info on how that works because it's been a pretty popular feature.
Why is transcription turned? Oh, no, that's my fault. Transcription was turned off on this, so it won't do it. Why was transcription off?
Well, that's okay. And that's a good thing as well. You do need to give it permission to do that. So unless you've got it set up as a policy to automatically record every meeting, which can be a little bit daunting, it's making sure that you can use that common courtesy for for all things AI, which is get the buy-in from the people on the call, say, I'm just going to turn on the transcription, make sure that if it is that confidential topic, maybe worth maybe not recording at that time, but you can at least make the decision so everyone on the meeting is aware.
Yeah, exactly. And as Jackie just said, I had one job, couldn't even do it. So that's on me.
Oh, that's technology as well. That's technology.
That's it. Yeah. So I'll have to, being that I am the host, I'll be able to recap this and we'll send it out as well.
Awesome. Because in addition to being able to do those Copilot features in Teams, usually live in meetings, as Stuart mentions, you do get a pretty good recap at the end, which covers off the list like action items, what topics were covered, who said what, and then gives you those references to the transcript or moments in that meeting that you can then refer back to later. So a lot of those quick wins are experienced through Teams, in addition to a lot of the app experiences that we've covered off.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, thank you everyone for your time today. If you've got no other questions, if you want to know more about our services, definitely reach out. You can send me an email at hello@bluebirdtechnology.com.au or contact our office on 08 9548 3077. I do have a survey. I would really appreciate if you'd be able to look into that. And this is, as Aidan said, this one was generated from Copilot as well. Hopefully that will work for you all. So if you have time, please fill that out. That would be amazing. And I'll still be around to answer any other questions and make phone calls to people. And last of all, I really want to probably emphasize this. Microsoft spent $19 billion so far on Copilot. So Copilot's an industry revolution. It's not a fad, and it's going to be around for a long time. So this is something we definitely want to get behind and understand how it all works. All right, I'm just going to also check. Sorry, thank you. That's amazing. Thank you, guys. The next one. Okay. All right, Jackie. We'll have another webinar coming up.
There were a lot of announcements in what Microsoft called Copilot Wave 2 last week. So these sort of features are pre that announcement. So I am looking to make sure that we're keeping the content up to date. So I'll be in touch with Stuart to make sure that we keep bringing these examples to you, because it is an ongoing thing. And if you are investing in Copilot, you want to make sure you're getting the best bang for your buck. So do send any questions our way, but we'll hopefully put on some new sessions in the coming weeks and months too.
Yeah, absolutely. And Vanessa, I agree. It is scary as well as amazing. It's that era of technology we're in right now where it could go one of two ways. But if we're doing it the right way, it's going to be very, very positive and it's going to be very good. Jackie, I can't agree on the UX for Edge. I quite like Edge. So I use Edge over Chrome every day of the week. Yeah.
It does work with Chromium though, so you can get it as a Copilot as an add-on for Chrome as well.
Yeah, very true. Excellent. I've got one more message from Jess coming through by the looks of it. Or is it bias? So a Copilot write the AI policy for an organisation, or is it bias? That's a good question. I don't believe it's biased, is it, Aidan?
Sorry, what was the? Yeah, I don't have access to the chat, so I didn't see this.
Sorry. Jess has asked, with Copilot, when it writes an AI policy for an organisation, is it biased or is it agnostic to the environment, I guess?
Well, I think everything that's been designed by a developer at some stage can have an inherent bias. I think it's an ongoing issue that we're seeing a lot of AI models. Microsoft has an AI commitment to try and remove bias as much as it can, but it's part of the due diligence of using the software is just making sure that the output represents the tone of voice and the values that you want to represent as well, in the same way that you'd doing if you got advice from any professional service. The best way that I'd probably suggest to limit that risk would be to try and make your prompts as specific as possible, so limiting down the scope of what Copilot can utilize to create that information, because providing those guardrails gives you more likely to have an accurate output, and that output's going to be more likely to be representative of what you want. The more scope that you give, the more chance of whatever inherent biases that could be in the model may represent itself. But definitely, it should be agnostic, but it's just something that is a variable.
Yeah, awesome, excellent. Well, thank you very much, Aidan. I really appreciate your time today. And
no worries, my pleasure.
Thank you, everyone, for wasting or spending your lunch watching us. I really appreciate it. It's been great.
Awesome. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great day.
Cheers,